Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Jenny.
How are you this morning?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm working on it.
Yeah, you're ready. You're about ready to rejoin civilization.
Yes. Yeah. So I've been on a 72-hour fast, or I will be at the end of the day. Yeah. So in the morning, I can have breakfast.
Oh, good. Good for you. Another day to go here.
Yes. Getting through that is going to be a trick, I fear. So just chewing a lot of gum, So we have a special guest on today, Reed Downey, and I'm going to let Michael talk a second about Reed too. He has a special relationship with him, and I've had a special relationship with him. I met Reed probably 10, 12 years ago, maybe something like that. When we kind of around the time we had first started Rope, and there really wasn't an organization out there kind of talking about schools and the problems going on in schools. And we were very much interested in how much schools were spending and what were we getting for results out of that. And so Reed was really indispensable, helping us kind of get started and giving us information. And he just has a heart for kids. He wants them to be able to learn. But I think, we're all kind of not knowing what to do at this point. But he's done some really great research today. I've done a little bit of it, but I've never put it together like he has. So I think you're going to be in a real, I think you're going to really want to watch his whole program because it's pretty eye-opening.
Yeah. Well, you'd be in a state of shock when you really see the real numbers and the real performance.
So how do you know Reed, Michael?
Well, I have a huge amount of respect for Reed. I met Reed kind of into my school board campaign, and he has the organization School Boards for Kids, helping promote education of school board candidates and trying to find the correct people to actually fill those spots, because most of these school boards are filled with people that are already pre-selected by the school districts or the teachers unions or whoever it is.
Right.
Because it's just not a job that's really sought after, as far as public service goes. So it's really easy.
Public service isn't sought after anymore anyway, but go ahead.
So it's so easy for these organizations to install their people and then run the school districts and the curriculum and have the point that we are now because they don't have qualified people that are in there. Well, anyway, Reed has School Boards for Kids. He has just got a phenomenal just work ethic and focus as far as trying to push the agenda forward to get qualified people in there and to just let people know basically how important school boards actually are. Because most school boards, and Reed will probably tell us about this, most of these school boards are completely subservient to the administrator. It's the role has been completely reversed. And Reed knows all about that. He's constantly, on the attack saying, you're the school board member, you're the one that's in charge, right. You're the boss, it's up to you. And I met Reed kind of early in my school board run campaign, and I just learned so much from him, and I had so much admiration, respect for him. I tried to go to every meeting and everything where Reed was, and the people that were around Reed, like Sherry Conley, and I just can't wait to have him on here, because what Reed did, Reed went back and looked at the proficiencies. So the state publishes the school scorecard system, to say how the school's doing. Well, it's a little bit convoluted. And what Reed did is he went into the actual numbers that matter and combined them. He had a lot of people, looking at every single elementary school district in this state. So he compiled all those onto his spreadsheets, and he gave the actual proficiencies of reading and math in the elementary school level. And this is all just a caveat. This is all pre-COVID. This is all from 2019. So that there's no excuse.
So you can't holler, but.
Yeah, there's no excuse for the school closures, AB schedule, virtual school, all that stuff. So Reed has the real numbers from 2019, when school was still school before COVID, at how we actually we're performing in it. And it's just mind blowing when you see what you think are good school districts and just how bad they really are.
Yeah. Well, let's bring him in. Good morning, Mr. Downey. How are you?
I'm very well. Good to be with you.
Well, thank you for being on with us today.
My pleasure.
So do you want to just launch right into your slide presentation?
Yeah, let's do that. Before we go into it, well, let's talk about Program for International Student Assessment. Very few people are aware of this program. Every 3 years, they test 15-year-olds in 80 countries. They test them in reading, math, science, and finance. And I've only put the numbers up on this slide for reading, math, and science. Now, consider this. At one time, we were number one. We were number one in education in the world. And we've reaped huge benefits from our education system that actually taught kids to read and do math. But we've slipped. China's now number one, and consider the significance of that. We've been able to do what we've done economically, and our place in the world is results of our technology advancements. We've created a country unlike any other. And all that is based upon our education system. We have to have people who are educated to fill all the important parts of our economy.
Well, let me just interject, though. Don't forget that in China, they only educate a certain percent of their population. They won't educate all of their kids. So,
but if they educate 400 million kids, that's a big number.
Yeah, well, true.
Our population is about 330 million. So no, these are select kids, but the advances that they can make as results of educating that many kids. Yeah, when you think about what if they come up with some weapon or some way to attack our economy that we can't counter? We have to be on the very cutting edge. So having China as number one in the world is not good for the United States. Now let's go to the next slide, showing where we are in relation to the other countries in the Program for International Student Assessment. Do you have that one up, Michael?
Yeah, it's up. Can you see it?
I don't see it. All I see is the one on.
Michael has gone the way of.
There we go. So in the world.
Jenny loaded that presentation in there. I'll get it up here, Reed. But go ahead. Her internet cuts out. So
all right. Well, in
ahead.
reading, and this was done in 2018. They do it every 3 years. So they didn't do it in 21 because of COVID. So they'll be doing these tests again in 24. But in 2018, the United States ranked 13th in reading. Math, we ranked 36th, and in science, 18th. So we've dropped.
Wow.
And considering that we spend more money than any other country in the world on education, and these are the numbers we have. Now, that's the academics where the United States stands in the world. Where does Oklahoma stand in education nationally? Well, in 1988, Congress passed a law called the National Assessment of Education Progress. And they do that every 2 years, and they test fourth graders and eighth graders. So what you see on the screen now is a 2022 assessment. So, and it shows Oklahoma. Fourth grade reading, 24% of our students are proficient. 24%. And we have 700,000 students in our education system.
Yeah.
We rank 48th nationally. Fourth grade math, 27%, 41st in the nation. Eighth grade reading, 21%, 48th in the nation. And look at math.
Well, and I think that's always something that I've had a huge concern about, is that we seem to get worse as the kids get older. And that's a trend that goes across all of this data, as I'm sure you've noticed. I can't understand why, even as horrible as we are, we're still higher in fourth grade than we are in eighth grade. It's awful.
Wow. Well, and Jenny and Reed, maybe one of you kind of know this, but what is the, like, let's take, okay, so we're basically the bottom of the barrel. We're almost last here. What is, like, let's say the top 1 or 2 schools, like, let's say it's, probably a Massachusetts or, a state like that. What are their proficiencies compared to ours? Just maybe kind of roughly. I mean, do you think they're like 50%, 60, 70, or have you ever seen anything on those top schools?
Well, no, Nate has all of those. I can go out and look them up while we're on.
Well, I would just like to know the actual, real differential here. Just how bad, we really are. I mean, yes, we're pretty much last, but I think if the number one school is, let's say 30%, 30 or 40% proficient rather than 24, then, that's not as big as if they were like 60 or 70.
Okay, so I'm on the data table.
They're probably pretty decently high in the.
Yeah, Massachusetts is number 1.
I'm looking to see if I can find the actual. But go ahead. Well, and I'll just look this up while you guys are talking.
Yeah, let's go on to the Oklahoma City Public Schools Elementary.
Sorry. Sorry, Michael.
I'll get it.
Now, these are the elementary schools. There's 33 schools in Oklahoma City Public Schools. Look at the reading proficiency in Britain. 10% are proficient in reading in Britain. 3% in math.
And that's Britain. That's Britain Elementary School, correct?
Yeah,
so
correct.
Just to let everybody know kind of what this sheet is, up here at the top, you've got Oklahoma. It's telling us what the school district is. Then it's got the school board members. And then down below that, we've just got every single elementary school listed here. And we could go to the next page. There's the rest of the schools. But we've got every single elementary school. And then the first column in the green is their proficiency in English. Then the gold columns are in math. Then we've got number of students. And then kind of just the students that are actual proficient. And then at the end.
Out of 733 students, 73 are proficient.
Yeah.
Out of 733. And in math, 22 out of 733. And you see the numbers on all of them. They're and if you can't read by the fourth grade, when are you going to learn to read?
Yeah. Now we're also, when we say proficient read, we're talking about these are kids that are below their grade level.
No, these are ones who are at grade level.
Oh, so this is
Proficiency,
this.
yeah.
So this
And
is even worse. So this is at or below. So this isn't even. This is even worse. These numbers.
Yeah. You got 10% or 73 students out of 733 that are reading at grade level.
Wow.
See, that's horrible. I mean,
Wow.
that's just insanity.
And it doesn't get any better. If they can't read in grade school, we don't teach reading after grade school, after third grade.
Right.
Third grade, up to third grade, you learn to read. From third grade on, it's you read to learn. And if you
Right.
can't read and comprehend, when are you going to do it? So let's go to that next page of that same. All right, there's 16,818 students in the elementary schools. 13,328 can't read at grade level.
Yeah. Wow.
14,000 can't do math at grade level. So,
So let's say it again. So 13,000 kids in elementary can't read at grade level
that's correct.
out of 16,000 kids.
Yeah.
So basically, the other 3,000 kids are just lucky, right?
Well, I don't know if they're lucky. They may be intellectually gifted. They may have parents that are working diligently to teach them how to read. But out of 16,000, you have 13,000 that can.
Yeah.
What do we send them to school for?
Yeah.
Well,
And
and
the math is
I'll
even
go
worse.
even, yeah, and I'll go even further and say, why do we pay for this? Why are tax dollars? Why are our tax dollars being taken from us to fund this kind of result?
Yeah. Let's go to the high schools. The next one. Okay, these are the high schools. Now, you notice class in high school advanced studies, 84% are proficient. That's really good.
Yeah.
Except those are exceptional students. Those are the gifted. So we would expect them to do well. And they do. But then what about the what is 16%? Even in advanced studies, 16% are not able to read at grade level.
Yeah.
And then 59% are reading. What about the other 41% in math? And these are the gifted kids. And then look at Douglas High School, 8% and 1%.
Yeah, 1% in math. Well, Northeast, 0. No one is proficient in math at Northeast.
Yeah. Then we go down to, I think I put in the numbers. Yeah, there at U.S. Grant, we got 9%, 7%. Number of students enrolled, 1863. What are these kids' future?
Yeah. Well, and I want to say, Reed, because I've literally looked at every one of these sheets in these districts that you guys did. And it's not like this is we're just picking the worst district here to show. This is like how it is across the entire state, pretty much. There's one or two kind of standout districts that have a little better performance, but for the majority, it's this is what it looks like across the entire state.
Yes. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. We don't seem to value education in Oklahoma. And I was noticing the returns on the bond elections last night. The elections, those bond issues passed big time. So we have great buildings. We have great football stadiums for high schools. Yet these are the academic results we're getting. What's the purpose of education if it isn't to teach kids to read and do math?
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Let's go to the next slide. I think it's Tulsa.
Yeah, that was the end of that one. Okay, so yeah, you've got Tulsa elementary schools here.
Yeah. Now these are below grade level instead of proficient. These are below. So you see, we start out with Bell, 89% elementary schools are below grade level in reading, 90% in math, and you see the number of students off to the right. These percentages, those are kids. I was talking to Lucia O'Connor about these scores, and she said, "Yeah." I said, She was talking to an elementary teacher in Tulsa, and the teacher says, "These kids can't read. These kids can't read." And then the teacher says further, she says, "Neither can their parents."
Wow.
So this is not something new. This is something been going on for a long time.
Well, and I can actually back that up because I remember when I was teaching 7th grade science, and I was at a charter school, independent charter school in Oklahoma City. And I remember kids would come in every year. They couldn't even read a ruler by 7th grade. I mean, you can't read a ruler by 7th grade. I mean, they were so low in so many different things coming into my classroom. And that was back in 2001, 1998 through 2002. And so it was already like that back then.
Yeah, so that's pre-device. That's pre everyone walking around with an iPhone, iPad, just complete internet, all the time. I mean, that's back almost at the very end of the dial-up days there.
What are you saying, Michael?
Hey, I'm saying that it's been bad for a long time, but it's getting progressively worse. But it's something that we'll touch on with Reed here probably shortly. Is you would think that parents would just be in an uproar to hold people accountable, hold their school board members accountable, be at their schools, be involved, but everyone is so disconnected, and we just get the same thing that just keeps going in the same direction, and that's straight down.
And again, I'll have to tell you, my mom taught with me. She taught English in 7th grade, and I taught science. And we would get together and constantly, all of us on our team would get together and have parent-teacher night, right? And you'd get maybe 5 parents who showed up out of, 90-something kids or 110 kids. You get 5 parents who showed up.
Yeah. Well,
and I called parents, whose kids were having problems, okay. I mean, this was all the way back then.
Well, I'll tell you, early on in my campaign, so I had the initial, the primary, and then we went into a runoff. And in the primary, one of Reed's School Board for Kids guys, he gave me some school data on just the overall schools in Edmond. And he goes, "Michael, you need to be talking about this all the time." And I read it and I was like, this can't even be right. I mean, I felt ashamed to even say that this is probably the correct data. And I was like, where'd you get this? Where do these numbers even come from? There's no way that Edmond is only 50% proficient in reading and math. I said, you're talking about Edmond, one of the premier school districts in this state. And he goes, "I'm telling you, this is all data straight from the school scorecard system or from the state education website." And I initially, Reed, when I got all that data from Dwayne Schroyers, who gave it to me, I mean, I literally just couldn't believe it myself. And I was even on the attack at that time, but I just couldn't comprehend that it was actually that bad then.
Well, when you look at the academics of Edmond, they're pretty good compared. But then when you compare Edmond with the national and then with international, you're the best of the worst. What's to brag about? What's to be proud of? But the thing is, people don't know this. They just don't know what's going on in our schools academically. And
sorry about that, guys. StreamYard, I think it's a StreamYard thing because nobody's even at home today using the internet. So I'm so sorry about that. I apologize for all this in and out business.
Let's go to the Tulsa high schools. Yeah. Now, see, we saw the numbers for the elementary school. Now, Booker T. Washington is the better school in Tulsa. But look at Central High School, 3%
Wow.
proficient, 2%. So we have out of 483 students, we got 14 that are proficient in English and 10 in math. And then Nathan Hale, 6%, 1%. Tulsa Metro, 5%, 5%. Memorial High School, 16 and 12. 978 students, 156 are proficient. Here again, there's 33,000 students in Tulsa public schools. In Oklahoma City, it's about the same number. And you have any idea how much they spend in Tulsa on their public schools, Tulsa public schools? $20,000 per student.
Wow.
They have almost a $700 million budget in Tulsa. Now, was Ryan correct in going into Tulsa, demanding a change? Who's representing these kids? Who's standing up for these kids? It's supposed to be the school board and the school board chairman. The school boards can control what goes on in our schools. They have one employee, and that employee is the superintendent. And they direct that superintendent. They give them, this is what we want to achieve, and we expect you to do it, and we're going to back you totally in what you do to improve the academics of our students. And if you don't do it, then we need to find another superintendent. The school boards have been derelict in their duty. They're failing these kids. You know, I've been around.
Well, because they're not a position, they're a political position anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not a position that's for kids. They're not doing it for kids. They're doing it because they want to get onto another board somewhere, or somebody told them to run, and she's so-and-so's friend of that. It's not like that at all. But then again, you know, like Michael said, where are the parents? I mean, we can complain about this all we want, but where are the parents saying, no, don't tax me for another stadium when my kid can't even read? Where are the parents doing that?
Yeah, let's look at another slide. This is school districts in the metropolitan Oklahoma City area. Do you have that one up? Yeah. Okay, now here's Norman. So we have 48% proficient in Norman in English and 32 in math. Moore is considered one of the better school districts, 45 and 34. And it breaks down by the high schools. Yukon 41 and 30, Mustang 40, 45. And go down to my high school. I graduated from Del City in 1961. 18% of the high school students in Del City are proficient in English and 9% in math. Midwest City High School, 23 and 15. Now, those are the metropolitan schools. And you can go out, we've looked at the schools around the state. You know, I had one lady that did these numbers, helped me get these numbers together. And she says, Reed, do we have any good schools in Oklahoma? Do we have any good schools?
Now, Reed, let me ask you, do you think that it's solely just a school board, you know, keeping accountability on top of a superintendent, or at the state level, are we lowering, you know, curriculum standards? And I mean, are we just lowering the bar in general that's not really pushing these kids, you know, to actually have some achievement? Or is it maybe it's a combination of both?
We social promote. We should demand that if a child cannot read at the end of the third grade, you do not go to the fourth grade. Yeah. If they cannot be remediated in the summertime, if they can't be remediated, they need to go back and do the third grade over until they become proficient in English and math. And of course, if you stop social promotion, you're going to have an outcry from parents who are saying, well, my kid's being disadvantaged and not moving with the class. That's not the point of school. The point of school is to teach them to read, period. That's it. And do math. That's why they're there. They're not there to be entertained. They're not there to be part of a social group. They're there to be educated. and we're not doing that. So we've got to have school boards that say, we are not going to social promote, and it shouldn't social promote at any grade level. We should have standards at high school that say, this is what you're supposed to achieve, but you don't dump that on someone in the 12th grade after they've been through 11 years of what we're seeing in these last numbers. It's got to be a gradual change, starting out in the first grade all the way up.
Well,
school boards are responsible for that.
To answer your question, Michael, so my mom taught in Oklahoma City public schools for almost 35 years. And we would talk about this frequently. And we had a really long discussion about the year before she died, actually, about all of this. And she said when she started out, she was a gifted and talented teacher. And she started out teaching gifted and talented. And then what would happen was they would change the program and then dumb it down a little bit and then make her responsible for something else. And then so she just witnessed kind of this gradual dumbing down of the curriculum over the time that she was actually teaching. And I think it was extremely frustrating for her because she was an English teacher. And, it came to the point where they wouldn't let her diagram sentences because the parents said that.
Oh, we lost you. We lost you again. I guess that's just something living out on that's farm life, Reed. I'm gonna bring your slide in on my side. So even if she goes out, we can go ahead and pull that up.
Let's look at the demographics of Deer Creek.
Okay, I'll pull that up in just a second. She's coming back in. Oh, she's still talking. She didn't even, I don't know if she realized she even went out.
No, I knew I went out. I think
I'm
somebody's going to get an unhappy phone call from me when I get off today.
I'm going to bring up that slide on my side for Reed.
Can you bring it up?
Yeah, I got it right here.
Okay, good. But she, she had the problem of they wouldn't let her, and that was kind of what happened. The school kind of shifted to the parents that made complaints were the ones that were heard the loudest. And so for some reason, I watched that happen where parents would come in and just complain. And then all of a sudden everything was different because we couldn't have the parents mad. And so not only was the curriculum kind of getting more dumbed down along the line, and that goes from way up, in textbook companies and that kind of thing. But not only was it that, but we'd, literally try to do something to make the kids really stretch or make the kids really work hard. And parents would come in and just poop all over us basically and call us. And then the principal would call us in and then we'd, well, you can't do that. And this parent's upset. Well, okay. And we want parental involvement, but it seems that what happened, certainly at least during the time that I was teaching, parental involvement ran the show and the parents didn't want their kids doing anything. Wow. And then from there, it kind of went to, okay, now we're seeing a problem. So the state steps in and starts doing all this testing. So now I have to stop everything in my classroom for 3 days or more to be able to test kids on a test that really doesn't have any meaning, and nobody's going to get results until after they're out of the classroom and moved on to another grade. But we upset the kids' all schedules for all of that testing. So it's just a combination of really, we just keep adding things to fix the problem, adding programs to fix the problem, paying for programs to fix the problem. And the whole thing is that we just need to go back to square one, put the kid in a seat and say, this is what we're doing and you're not going to do it. You're not going to get up until we do it.
And remove all electronic devices, grades 1 through 6. They do not need cell phones or iPads.
They don't need any electronic device in school. I mean, really, honestly, Reed, that part of the problem that we're having is these Chromebooks that come in because they've done everything on these Chromebooks. They want the kids to be so technologically friendly, but then the Chromebooks are causing, I could bring up probably 15 articles about the problems with Chromebooks. So, I mean, really, honestly, it's to go back to being, just paper and pencil with a teacher who knows what they're talking about, only educating kids in the reading, writing, math, and science, and nothing else.
I agree.
And now they get out to go to the counselor's office so they can talk about things, and they're out of school for hours in a counselor's office, most of the time without parents knowing. It's just one thing after another, and it just all needs to stop, and we need to go back to square one.
It worked for over 200 years.
Yes, without all of this nonsense. Yes.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, let's look at Deer Creek. This is probably the wealthiest district in the state. The demographics, it's 61% Caucasian, 6% Black, 11% Asian, Hispanic, 8.9 Native American. Then the district population of 32,000. Now look at the average household income. Average, $140,000. Median, half above and half below, 108,000. Poverty rate, 2.2. Unemployment, 2%. Education level, age 25. High school diploma, 3%. High school diploma, only 13. Some college, 17. Then look down at the bachelor's degree and above. This is a highly educated district. I mean, this is where you should really shine academically. They have everything going for them. You can't say, well, it's because of minorities. No, it's not. It's 61% white, Caucasian. Money, poverty? No, there's no poverty here. And look, flip up, bring up the next sheet. Now look at that. Deer Creek Elementary, 72% are proficient. Now that's really good, but what about the other 28%? How come there's 28% that can't read at grade level? And another 28% that can't do math at grade level? 628 students in Deer Creek Elementary School, 452 of them are proficient, but what about the remainder? Why? Prairie View, 59 and 57. Grove Valley, 64, 59. Those are good numbers, but what about the others? This is a district that shouldn't have that. They should all be reading and doing math at grade level.
Yeah, they should be in the minimum, probably 85 to 90 percentile at the minimum.
Yeah. And they're not. Then we'd look at the high school, 63% are proficient. Well, what about the other 37%? 1,899 students, 1,196 are proficient in reading. Well, what about the remainder? What about the 700 approximately? And then you got 39% in math. Out of 1,899 students, 741 are proficient. What about the remainder?
Yeah.
Why, in a district like that, and they'll attract the best teachers.
Yeah.
It's a good district to teach in. All the advantages. Now, we've talked quite a bit about school boards. School boards have the power, but you got to have people on those school boards who are dedicated to academics and getting kids educated. That's their primary responsibility. But unfortunately, they've abdicated their responsibilities to the superintendent. I've talked to some people who've been on the school board to go for training, and they say, well, you just do what the superintendent tells you. He'll take care of you. So now we have superintendents running our schools and not the school boards. Of course, then we have problems getting people to run for school boards. Probably the least appreciated elected officer is in the state, and one of these most important. Who sits on that school board? We had strong school boards, we wouldn't be seeing numbers like this. And whenever you say we're not going to social promote, that's going to cause a firestorm from parents. But you've got to have a school board and citizenry back in the school board says, no, our job is to educate these kids. That's our job. And that's the way we're spending our money. Someone that doesn't have any kids in school, they're still paying ad valorem tax and state tax, and they are not getting their money's worth. These kids need to be educated so they can be employable. And with these kind of numbers, not so. Another thing that's happening in our schools, and it's really a crisis, and that's we're hemorrhaging teachers. Teachers are quitting, and it's not necessarily because of money. One of the reasons they're quitting is the environment in the schools, the classroom. My grandchildren went to Bryan Elementary, and my daughter was at a Christmas party. She started talking to a person that was there, and it turns out he's a teacher. He's a teacher at Bryan Elementary. And he tells my daughter, he says, I'm getting out of teaching. And since my grandkids went there, she said, naturally curious, why are you quitting? I said, because of the kids. He said, we had 3 teachers walk out of class today because of the behavior of the kids. Teachers are being abused. They're not being respected. They're being physically abused, cursed out. And why would someone want to put up with that? And they're not. And then there's an article came out, Center for American Progress, which is a left-leaning nonprofit. There's been an 80% decline in freshmen going into colleges of education. And the other side of that is 80% of those that are in the education college now are dropping out and going to something else. If we don't have teachers, everything collapses. You can't run a sophisticated economy like we have without a strong teacher corps and a strong education system, and we don't have it. And the one problem we have when we do get a good candidate, like Michael, like Jared Buswell in Tulsa and others, almost every school board election I've been involved in, my candidate is lost. It's not because they're not a good candidate, it's because people don't get out and vote.
Correct.
Yep.
These off-cycle elections. Sherry Connolly introduced a bill in the House of Representatives, House Bill 1826. And it was a good bill. When it went to the floor for a vote, there was no debate, nothing. It was an up and down vote. 47 Republicans voted against Sherry Connolly's bill. 47 Republicans.
Do you know why?
I spoke to a Republican representative, and I said, you voted against the House Sherry Connolly's bill. He said, yeah. Said, we didn't feel like, or the feeling was that if we load these bills or these elections into the general election, or even the primary in June, that people won't know they're there. And then I think the real reason came out. He said the municipal league didn't like this bill. Now wait a minute. Who are you representing? The people of Oklahoma, the people in your district, or the municipal league? And then you have in rural areas, we had a response from a lady representative in Garvin County. Maybe it's Grady. Got a response. Well, I had a call from my superintendent and a couple of board members, and they said I shouldn't vote for this bill. And that's happening a lot across Oklahoma. Rural legislators are listening to the superintendents and voting according to what the superintendent wants them to vote.
That's the key. Yes,
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
Yep. So they're afraid if they go out for a bond election, that if they really educate people what it's about, they may not vote for it. And then they might.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's about money with the superintendents. It's about
Yeah.
money.
Well, and I want to just summarize real quickly that that bill that Reed is talking about, Sherry Conley, was simply going to move school board elections into the general election cycle, where you have like a June primary and a November runoff if you have a runoff. Because now the way that it sits is school board elections are the primaries held in February. And most of the time, the primaries are uncontested. You just have someone fill out their paperwork, they run, they're the only person in the race. Or if there is someone else in the race, there's only two of them. So that may go to like an April runoff, but you do not have people getting out in the weather in Oklahoma in February to go vote for school board. And that's done on purpose. It's done 100% so that the school districts can be controlled by the people that do go vote. And those people are the teachers union and the crazy liberal people. They will go vote on in a February election. And that's how they just control these school districts in Oklahoma.
And our kids suffer for it.
Yeah.
Like I said, the school boards are the key to our education system, and it's got people that have a backbone that'll stand up and say, our total job is to see that these kids get educated, and they're not. They're failing these kids.
Well, and I think, you look at what happens at one point I was raising 5 kids at one time. And, parents, it is kind of tough, even if the dad's working and mom's at home, dad's, I've got too many things to do. I can't run in a school board election. Mom's like, I can't take care of 5 kids and run in a school board election, and in some ways you can kind of see that perspective. It is tough to kind of work that in, but there are other people in the district, retired people who don't have, who have the time, whose kids are a little older, something like that. There are people in these districts who can run, but it just doesn't make enough difference to them. I don't think they're educated enough to know what's going on. And then on the top of that, they just think to themselves, oh, well, the school's got this covered. I don't, it's really an appeal to authority, I think.
Jenny and Michael, I'm almost thinking maybe we need professional school boards. People who are professional, that they don't have to take the superintendent's word for whatever he's putting forth. They look at it and they decide. It's not working.
Yeah.
And our kids are paying it. I walk by a playground and I see kids out on the playground, and I think, what is their future? What is their future when China's #1 in the world and we're number 13 in reading, and Oklahoma is right at the bottom nationally in academics? What's their future? What is that? When I was born, Franklin Roosevelt was president, and I had a future. Now I think about it, these kids, if they reach my age, what are they going to experience in their lifetime? I'm concerned. About them.
I'll tell you kind of the heartbeat that I got from a lot of my opposition when I ran Reed. So I would put videos out on Facebook or, positions that I was going to take into the school. And basically, I was concentrating on academics. Okay, not just, I think we need to redefine what our actual education is, because academics are not a part of it anymore. Now there's so many social programs and all kinds of insertion of this and that. So we need to actually get back to academics, but that's a whole nother talk. But so I put this video out, and there was a guy that was, challenging on my video. So I just simply sent him a message, said, hey, how about we just have a phone call? And he's one of the few people that, yes, agreed to have a call. So I called him up, and we had over an hour-long conversation. And the gist of the conversation, Reed, is he had little kids, and he wanted his kids to be on Chromebooks. He wanted his kids to be on iPads. He wanted his kids to program, to learn computer programming, because he said in today's world, and this is straight out of this guy's mouth, okay, In today's world, my kid doesn't need to know how to do math. He can just type it into his computer. He doesn't need to know the answer to this history because he can just look it up and get it in 10 seconds. He doesn't need, and I told him, I said, you understand that you're gonna have no critical thinking skills for your own child. And I said, ultimately, I said, let me tell you something. I said, your kid is, in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, whatever grades they were. I said, 20 years from now, when you think that your kid's going to be programming computers, I said, that job's not going to exist. That job's going to be done by AI. Your kid is not going to have any skills because you're betting that he's going to be some computer programmer. I said, you're completely wrong. Your kid needs to have academic excellence on every level. And ultimately at the end of the conversation, after I told him that, I think he kind of realized, because at that point I was like, hey, in the elementary school level, we don't need to be so heavily dependent on, these smart boards and Chromebooks and iPads and all these. Well, it's not really Chromebooks at the elementary level, but like the iPads and all the interactive stuff. I said, I want your child to use his own imagination, to make his own story, to have his own thoughts, to, create the scenes and colors and things in his own brain, not be given to him. I said, your child has 100% input. And I said, I want your child to have output, to where they're the contributing member. They're not just consuming everything. And at the end of the conversation, he ultimately agreed with me. And then he changed. He took all his stuff down that he was saying. So I hope, that he kind of turned things around with his own thought process. But I'm telling you, that's the thought process of a ton of these younger people. They don't need to know the knowledge because it's out there on the internet. They can just look it up. People have become so savvy at just looking information up. They don't need to retain it. They don't need to have critical thinking.
But then, also we're in the generation of kids that were, that are raising their kids now, that have been in this whole generation of not being educated themselves. Yeah. So you've got a whole bunch of parents who weren't really educated properly themselves. They don't really know how to critically think. They don't know any of that kind of stuff. And so to them, it's just like it was when I got handed a computer, I got handed this, and that's what I did. And I learned it and I'm fine. Right.
Yeah. Well, I agree. Reed will probably agree with me on this because I think we align. But if we could just get a single school district to really turn things around, and that's what we were betting on, and that's where we put a ton of energy over the last year, was in Tulsa with Jared, to get Jared up there as a school board member with Elena, because Elena is just an absolute superstar, smashing them up there in every way. And Jared would have been just another exponential power up there. But if we could just turn one single district around to where we show that district has an academic prowess now, to where they are actually on academics and they have unbelievable proficiencies and they're turning out kids that are just unbelievable, it'd be just a matter of time before those dominoes fall against the rest of this state.
Tulsa is a key. Tulsa is, and there's three board seats up in Tulsa this next go around. We can win one of those seats. We can start making changes in Tulsa. And Tulsa right now is the largest school district, and it's one of the lowest academically, and Tulsa's 72% minority.
Yeah.
The kids who need it the very most. Yeah. The way out of poverty is education, but we continue this cycle of poverty, and it's because we're not educating these kids to get them out of it. In Oklahoma City is 72%. The kids that need it the most are getting the least, and the money is being put into it. Oklahoma City passed a $955 million bond issue. So we're going to pour money into a district that's not performing now. And in Tulsa, almost a $700 million budget. I go back to the teachers. We cannot survive as a constitutional republic with an illiterate citizenry. Okay. We've got to have people who can think and they can read. And if they think and read and think, they will realize that the system of government we have now is one of the best ever devised by man. And I think God had a lot to do with that. But if we don't educate these kids, we don't educate them where they can think, we can't continue.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that would help, I think, in the classroom, first of all, if we put cameras in a classroom, teachers are being abused physically and emotionally, verbally. We can't continue to lose teachers. We can't. If we don't have good teachers, we're not going to have educated citizenry. And by having cameras in the classroom, and I know there's an issue about privacy or someone being able to look in at kids while they're in school, but there's cameras in the hallways. The general public needs to know what goes on in these classrooms. They need to see the environment that these teachers are putting up with. And then a third reason is we need to be able to look at teachers, someone who knows how to teach, to review these teachers. And if they're not proficient in their teaching skills, they need to be remediated. And then there are teachers that don't need to be in the classroom. There was an article in June 30th of Wall Street Journal, and it's Randy Weinberger saying that we need affirmative action because our kids are not educated well enough to get into the colleges because of and this was in the words of the NEA, because of the rotten public schools. But part of the article said that one bad teacher with a classroom of kids will cost those kids in one year $1.4 million in earnings. One of the big problems with the OEA and NEA is they do everything they can to keep a bad teacher in the classroom.
Yeah.
And who does that hurt? It hurts the kids, but ultimately it hurts all of us. We have got to have teachers. We've got to respect teachers. We need to encourage people to go into teaching. That's where it's at. That's the ball game.
Yeah.
Education is the ball game.
Well, but it is, but things are going to have to change first, I think, because I can't tell. I mean, part of the reason I quit and didn't go back, I mean, I left after my son was born because my husband and I had agreed that I wouldn't work after we had children and I would stay home with the kids. But I wouldn't have gone back anyway because I got so tired of getting called on the carpet by the principal after a parent coming in and complaining that I thought, what is the point here? I can't even really teach anything at this point because, and again, think about when that was, almost 20 years ago. So if it's been that bad for that long, and now, when Obama was in office, he wrote a letter to colleagues that basically said if a child is on an IEP or if a child is Black, you cannot, you just simply can't do anything with them. You can't kick them out of the classroom. You can't punish them in any way. So what ended up happening after that was all of the schools, instead of just saying, no, that's crazy, we're not going to do that. We need to, if they're acting up and affecting the ability to learn of other kids in the class, we're going to remove them from the class or remove them from the school. But no, the schools didn't do that. They just continue to allow these kids in these schools to beat up on these teachers. So, I mean, seriously, I don't even put a lot of blame on the NEA and the OEA anymore because I think so much of this is coming through the university. I mean, you had Columbia University where the Marxists set up all of their teaching schools, and it came through Columbia, and it's just filtered down into all of these teaching schools, and all they do is pump out, the most Marxist teachers they can find. And, and between that and the parents who, either don't care. I mean, unfortunately, the problems with all of this is the fact that you can't shoot one arrow and hit one target. There are so many multiple failures.
That's true, Jenny. I was on the KIP board for 7 years,
Yeah.
KIP charter school, Tracy McDaniel.
Yeah.
And he had a teacher come in from Oklahoma State. Name was Rexy. And Rexy went into Tracy's office one time and she said, "These kids can't teach. And these kids can't learn." She tested, she said, "I've done the best I can. They can't learn." And Tracy said, "Rexy, there's nothing wrong with the kids. You're just not able to teach, but we're going to train you on how to teach." And they did. And Rexy became a very proficient teacher. So we've got to have a way of training teachers to teach. You just can't go through 4 years of college and come out and do 12 weeks of student teaching and be a teacher. Most of the teachers that were coming out of the colleges were young, white, middle-class females. They're not used to some of the environment that they go into. And within 5 years, half of them have dropped out or losing talent. So we've got to have a way of training teachers where they work with someone who knows how to teach, that mentors them. And they should probably do a year of training with a teacher who knows how to teach. When I was in construction, the way we created a journeyman is we put an apprentice with a journeyman, and he worked with him. They learned the trade from someone who knows the trade.
Right.
Get your academics at college, but to learn how to teach, you need to be just like an apprentice with a journeyman. I'll show you how to control the classroom. I'll show you how to get lessons across to these kids. Teachers are the key to what's going on in our country. And the colleges of education, I won't say any more about them.
Well, I pulled up while you guys were talking, I pulled up the NAP scores, and it's kind of interesting to see the NAEP scores. So let's look, if you don't mind, let's look at, so this is grade 12 in mathematics. Okay, so this is grade 12 mathematics. So this is all schools. So you come down here, Massachusetts, like you said, is number one in grade 12 mathematics. But then here's what you need to look at. I mean, you need to look at over here, at or above basic. Even then, this, and this is the best one, at or above basic is 73%. At or above proficient are 34. So you've got more kids that are not proficient in math, even in Massachusetts with the top score. So, I mean, think about that. So we can go to grade 8 mathematics. Let's go to grade 8 mathematics. So if it comes up and we go down here, so Massachusetts is again at the top for grade 8 mathematics, at or above basic. Now they do pretty well in math. At or above basic, 86. At or above proficient, 55. I mean, that's better than the majority of Oklahoma schools. Wouldn't you agree, Reed?
Yes.
But then even so, here's the national public, right? This is what national public scores are. So you've got a number of states that are above that, and then the rest of them down here, and we're right here.
Yeah.
So pretty close to the bottom. So let's look at grade 4 mathematics. Fortunately, they make it really easy to do this. So Minnesota is top in grade 4 mathematics, and they have 90 or above.
Wow.
59 or above proficient. So at least the majority of their kids know how to do math. But it just drops off. I mean, look, down here, 47%, 45%. Now the national average is 41. So this looks to me like it's kind of an endemic issue. I mean, it's not just Oklahoma. Oklahoma is terrible, but this is a national problem. So why is it a national problem?
Well, I'd say because of the Department of Education, because the federal government is in education. That's what I'm going to say.
I think there's probably some great accuracy there, Michael, because if you look at it, how many things, there was a study done one time that said for every dollar of money that we get from the feds, we spend something like $5 to implement it. So we're wasting money with federal stuff, but federal stuff comes down and literally schools say they're bound by it. Just like that Obama letter, it was a letter, okay? Wasn't a federal law, it was a letter. And the states complied with that, and that's why you have so much problem in the classroom today.
Yeah.
I asked, Sherry Conley, how much money would it take to get rid of the feds in Oklahoma education? And I think it amounted to about $1 billion. If we could free up our schools to teach and get rid of the federal regulations, I think we would advance our education systems considerably. We would not be subject to that coming down. We can do without federal money. We may not be as plush as we are right now, but what's the point of education if it's not to educate kids? And what we're doing, our education system is almost a daycare.
Yeah, it really is.
That's exactly what it is.
We send kids not to be educated, but to be entertained. So we have all these extracurricular activities they get involved in.
And propagandized, so let's not forget that.
Well, and indoctrination into liberal ideology. No, we need to be teaching kids to read, and getting the feds out of our education system would be a big step. And we may have to tighten our belt. But tightening our belt may save our country.
Well, I just looked up to do, because I did a very long research video on the Oklahoma tax credit, the child tax credit that was passed last year, and just did a lot of research to put it in perspective in terms of money and who's making what and what, all of this kind of thing. And then when I did that, I kind of realized that education, well, we've always known education takes up the largest percent of the state budget. So it's at 57% of the state budget right now. Over $3 billion goes into Oklahoma education, and we educate almost 700,000 kids. So we're spending $3 billion on 700 kids to have very few able to read or do mathematics. So I would say we don't have a little tightening, Reed. I would say we have a lot.
Jenny, it's not just $3 billion.
No, not at all.
No. It's more like it's in excess of $10 billion that we're spending on public education.
And thank you for catching me. That's just appropriations.
Yeah.
That's just what we
have ad
appropriate.
valorem tax. I looked at my ad valorem tax here in the Moore public schools. Almost over 70% of my ad valorem tax goes to the Moore public schools.
Yeah.
And that's not the end of it either. There's other money coming in to the public education. And then we get go ahead.
And ad valorem tax is your property tax. So if you don't pay your bill to pay for these schools, you lose your house.
That's right. They'll come and bid it on the sheriff's sale.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Oh, there's talk about doing away with the state income tax. Well, the state has got to have money to run, one way or the other. If it's a sales tax, they can't come take your property away. And that's a way that a lot of property has been confiscated. You raise the taxes to the point where people can't afford to pay the taxes. They get behind. The city treasurer comes in, and they do a sheriff's sale, and you lose your property. You're out because you don't have the money to pay the taxes. And for people on fixed income, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that regularly lose their homes.
Yeah. So, but you get gets into other things. The Agenda 21.
Yeah.
They want to have everyone piled into these cities. And another thing about this off-cycle elections, I looked up the population of Oklahoma City Metro and Tulsa Metro. There's about 2.1 million people in those two metropolitan areas. Now, these rural legislators that are kowtowing to their superintendents, if Tulsa and Oklahoma turns blue and they elect liberal legislators and they become the majority in the legislature, these rural communities will lose all control.
Yeah.
They will be dictated to by the metropolitan areas. You know, that Medicaid bill that amended the Constitution, 70 counties voted against that, and it only won by 5,000 votes. Our rural legislators need to realize that we need the off-cycle elections ended. It's not going to change much in their area, but it can have an impact in the metropolitan areas, which are going to control the future of the state.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we need to work on that again next session, and people need to, we just need to make sure that people understand that that's such a big thing. But we also need to, we had a really good bill in the legislature 2 years ago to, kind of rein in school boards, and that one went nowhere. So, I firmly believe that the legislature, the leaders of the legislature have an agenda, and it's given to them by people who run this state, and it's not the people. And they run the stuff that these people that are paying for their elections and their next step in their political campaigns and their next step in their whatever, and can give them the big cushy jobs. They're the ones that are running this state, not us.
Ross Perot made a comment which was back in 1990, I don't know exactly when, said, you want to see who's responsible for our problems? Look in the mirror.
Yeah.
If we have people, citizens, who will assume their civic responsibility, we only have ourselves to blame. Michael could have won that election if the people who said they were going to vote for him actually went out and voted for him. The ones that said, I forgot about it.
Yeah, there was a ton of them, Reed. There was a ton of them.
Yeah. And over in Tulsa, same thing with Jared. If the people who really cared about the education of the kids had gotten out and voted, it would be different in Tulsa. That one board seat would have flipped the Tulsa board. And Ryan Walters would not have to have gone in there and demand the resignation of the superintendent.
Yeah, the board would have done their job, and they would have
That's their job.
That situation.
That's their job. And I don't even think these board members look at the academics because they post it on their own website. You can go to their website and they'll have a drop-down box that shows the academics of their history. So they're not looking at it. And if they do look at it, they don't really understand it. Hey, our kids can't read.
Yeah.
We got a great football team.
Yeah.
Yes, and that is what it is, isn't it, Reed?
We put sports above academics.
Mm-hmm. Breads and circuses.
Oh, it's going to take, and it's getting to be trite term, grassroots, but it's going to take the people realizing that we are really in danger of losing our country. Now, there will be a country here, but not the country that you and I grew up in.
Yeah.
Not the constitutional republic. We've got to have an educated citizenry that can discern truth. And the way you discern truth is you read. And if you can't read, then you're going to be dictated to by whoever's in power.
Well, I mean, we did away with cursive, you know, and I think you remember, Reed, that we just had a fit about that. You know, we need to teach cursive. You know, how easy is it going to be for people to read older documents? Because nobody even writes in cursive anymore, except us old folks. I mean,
and speaking for myself only, my cursive is pretty rough. It's a good thing I've got a word processor.
hey.
And also one that can spell.
Yeah, but that's another thing we've done away with too. You know, and I don't think people, all we need to do is look at the crawl on a television newscast. There are misspellings. They don't, you know, conjugate verbs properly. And you think these are professional jobs. I mean,
well, if they can't read when they get out of high school and they go to college and they still can't read, and anyway.
Yep, it's a major problem. Well, Reed, anything else to close us out with? I mean, what can we do? What do you suggest we do?
Jenny, we have got to educate people, and that, you know, that's easy to say, but we've got to keep hammering away at the academics and the consequences of not addressing our education system. It's just that critical. You know, we've got a lot of gray hair around, but that gray hair is passing away. And all we're going to have is people who didn't get an education. And it'll be a disaster.
Yeah.
As it affects every area of our lives. So,
Absolutely.
Reed, school boards for kids. How can they find school boards for kids?
The best way to do that is just to email me.
Okay, I'm going to put it in here.
Yeah, my email address is r43@reeddowney.com.
Okay, and I'm going to say for school boards for kids information.
We need to build up a cadre of people all around the state that whenever something comes up, like a school board election or that House Bill 1823, that we say, call your Congress or your representative, email them, call them, tell them, I want you to pass this. It's critical.
Yeah.
Particularly in the metropolitan areas. You know, Oklahoma City may be turning purple, and that's not good.
If it isn't already, who knows? Yeah. All right. Well, Reed, thank you so much for being with us today. We sure do appreciate you taking the time, and thank you for all that information. And we, you know, people share the information, tell your friends, tell your neighbors. It's the only way we're going to be able to do this. So
it's going to have to be word of mouth, a grassroots effort to get things turned around, to educate people to the point that really we have a major problem in our education system, and we can't rely upon the people we have in the past because they're not doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, Reed. We'll talk to you soon. And thanks for being with us. All right. Bye. So seeing all that information in one place, although I didn't see it all since I was going in and out on my computer. Yeah. Sorry about that. I hope that makes people wake up and go, what the what?
Yeah, people really have no idea. And I'll tell you, Jenny, you know, I'm in business finance. You know, we're always looking in like long-term investments. We're looking at deals, 5 to 7 to 10 to 15 years from now. And I'll tell you what I see is the point that we're at right now. When you look at the macro of what's happened, we're at the ramification of when you were a teacher. There's not like just a 6-month lag or a year lag or even a 5-year lag in education. We're talking 20-year lag, because those kids that were the issues when you were in education, you hit on this earlier, because you
Oh, I choked you up.
You said that those kids are now having kids, and their kids are the ones in school. So we have, you got to look at this on the macro level, which is at least 20 years, maybe 25 years. So the issues that were promoted and kind of promulgated back there in the late 80s, early 90s, probably really more in the 2000s. I said 80s. I meant the late 90s and then early 2000s. Okay. And it's really probably the majority of the mid 2000s, like 05 to maybe 2010 or 10ish, around there. And, kind of right when that, I think the people that you were teaching kind of allowed that whole Common Core thing to start its way, really coming into school. So we're at that level now to where the people that lag is just now really starting to hit. That's why we see this insane library books, insane curriculums, insane just there's no classroom ethics. There's absolutely no any kind of just disciplinary action that you can take in any capacity. All these, I don't want to say all these kids. A majority of these kids are out of control. They know that they can just pull their phone out at any point in time, film a teacher, film somebody, and there's no accountability. But that goes back to the school board, and the school board is just completely usurped to the school administrator. They just do whatever. So the left, in my opinion, the left and big government is 100% in the driver's seat, because, like I said, with that conversation with that dad, if all you have is a bunch of people that just look up the information, then now you've got an entire class of people, or just a huge group of people that are not going to have critical thinking skills. And before too long, Jenny, all these teachers, all these schools, they're going to fail just like everything else. Well, guess who's going to have to come in and solve the problem? Big government, big technology. Now we're not going to have teachers and local everything. You're going to have basically pods of virtual school taught by a select few that's going to move into the future. Oh, this technology is so great. We can teach all these kids all this stuff. We can save all this money, blah. It's a complete charade, but it's going to be the government putting out a single message. Ultimately, I'm just going to fast forward now, 10 or 20 more years. You're going to have the government basically taking over all education at the local level and teaching these kids, because you're going to have teachers that aren't going to, the teacher shortage is going to get worse. You're going to have the results are going to get worse. It's going to turn into a crisis, a major education crisis in the country. The only person that can come in and solve that education crisis is the government, with technology partners like Google and, whoever. And they're going to come in and install an entire grid of, you're in some little pod watching a freaking screen, getting your education from some remote place. And everyone's going to have the same type of experience. That's what I see.
Well, sadly, I think we're already way down the road to that. Just because when you look at Common Core and what Common Core did, part of the reason why the mathematics scores are just in the toilet is because of Common Core. Everybody knew Common Core math was bad. And I think that the whole idea is to inject bad things into the school and make kids uneducated, because an uneducated populace is extremely easy to control.
Oh yeah.
Extremely easy. So if you don't know how to critically think your way out of things, if you don't know, if you can't go, why am I wearing a mask when the guy over there at that table isn't wearing a mask because he's sitting down, but I'm walking through the restaurant and I have to wear a mask?
Yeah.
If you can't think your way out of things, anybody can tell you what they want to tell you, and you'll just go, okay, all right.
Well, look at Zbigniew Brzezinski, one of the biggest globalists of all time. In his book, he said, used to in the past, it was easier to kill, a couple million people. He said, now it's easier to just control them. I mean, and that's where we are. People can just be 100% controlled. And, it's crazy. But I think we have such a lag. But Reed is right. People are going to have to realize, hey, we're losing this country, or we're losing the way that I grew up in some way. And I want that for my own kids. And that's,
or we've lost it and have to get it back.
Yeah, I think it's lost. I mean, I think it's completely lost. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And if you or I had anything to do with the administrative level of a school, I mean, in the elementary school, I mean, that's where it starts. You go back into elementary school and you just basically have these kids putting in time to read and write and do math.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all elementary school should be. They don't need all these feeling buddies and all this BS and all this stuff that they have.
No.
You put hours into just 2 or 3 subjects of actual academics, and you would turn your entire school system around in a matter of years.
But that's the reason why homeschool, families, when you look at the actual facts and those homeschool families who actually have their kids take tests, they're way more advanced than public school kids as a rule, just because of the fact that that's what they do. They don't have to stop, the whole curriculum for 2 weeks to take a stupid state test for 3 days. They don't have to go to a counselor to confirm their feelings and get taken out of math class like Denise's kid was, if you remember that video. So no, it's all nonsense. It's done deliberately to dumb down kids. And, until parents stand up and say they've had enough, then, I don't know what's going to happen. Parents are going to have to stand up and say enough.
Yeah. Well, but ultimately, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, and I tell my kids this all the time, our modern education system is a system of control in the first place. I mean, it teaches you to just go to school. The best students in today's time, I'm not just going to blanket everybody, but I'm pretty much just going to blanket everybody. I don't want to, but
I'm not going to blanket everybody, but I'm just pretty much going to blanket everybody.
You're rewarded in today's time by just being the best little rule follower and memorization person. If you can memorize all the stuff they give you, you can become a doctor, lawyer, whatever. You can achieve, what you would call success in America. They don't teach finance. They don't teach business. They don't teach entrepreneurship. Yeah. They don't teach anything about how to make deals and how the real money, works and how you become free and independent, because they don't want you free and independent.
No.
I had a long conversation with my son last night. Most of these doctors, lawyers, all these people, all these professionals, engineers, even, they work for someone else that makes them do their job. And they can get compensated well, but at the end of the day, most of them are miserable. I worked in the golf business for a long time. I was a golf pro at high-level golf clubs where you had, unbelievable amounts of money and wealth. Most of those people were absolutely miserable, and it's just such a catch-22. And I tell my kids all the time, I don't want you to be like that. I want you to be able to create, because that's how we're made. We're not made to just, I said, we've been completely turned into consumers. I want you to be creative, expressive. I want you to be able to contribute, and design yourself in your own world and have the gratification that you did something, not just did someone else's job or whatever. But that's the whole crux is when the government is involved, they want control. They control the people through education. Education turns you into an automaton. I mean, that's the process. You follow orders. You're not going to say anything out of line, because if you do, you're going to get in trouble or, whatever. There's no reward for, being a rebel.
An independent thinker.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's true. There is no reward for being an independent thinker.
Yeah.
And that's sad.
I'm on the extreme of that level, but that's how I feel. That's how I look at all this, and as everything gets worse, it's just like any crisis, whether it's a terrorist event or a natural disaster, the local people can't handle it. So who comes in? Big brother, big business, big feds. They're the ones that have to handle it. That's what we're turning into an education crisis, and that's what's coming. I mean, I'm glad we made this video, because I'll come back to this 15 years from now and say, see, I told you.
I told you so.
Happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's crazy, because it's kind of the same thing we've said about lots of things like Common Core. We had that one absolutely nailed, and you still had a bunch of Republicans who were going, oh, but, look, the Bushes controlled a bunch of that Common Core stuff. I mean, and so I just saw a picture yesterday with our governor.
Yeah.
Our governor.
1,000 words in some cases.
Yeah. And OW shaking a hand, and he was just happy as a clam. And I'm like, wow. And the people that gave us Agenda 21, way to sidle up to that. I mean, people don't even get it. They don't care. They don't understand where these people are from. They don't care what their belief system is. It's just all, oh, I get to go to Friday Night Lights and watch my kid, hit another kid and, knock his mouth guard out and score a touchdown.
Yeah. Well,
there we go.
Go
OU.
Yeah. Well, the roosters are going to come home to roost, and it's going to be, it's going to be a sad day when it really hits rock bottom. Or maybe it's going to be a great day, because then people are finally going to realize, hey,
it'll come to their doorstep.
Yeah, this whole thing is bad. We want to go in the other direction, but I think we got a long way to go. In this deal. All right, well, Jenny may be going out, so we'll just go ahead and end the podcast here. Jenny and I will be back Friday. I don't think we have a guest. I think we're just going to talk news and some other stuff. So anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure to, I want to say real quick, we are a volunteer organization. We do need your help. So anything you can do to help us, Jenny's magically back. She's going to have to change internet service providers.
I think it's that.
She's going to have to change computer hardware. Anyway, I said we'll be talking Friday, and I was just telling people we need their help. We're a volunteer organization. We do everything we can do to try to fight, all these battles for education, our kids, and our future. But it costs money. It costs money in today's time to fight, and we do need help. So.
Well, and I do have I just confirmed this today. So Representative Sherry Connolly is going to be on with us Friday morning live. So she will be able to be on with us live, and I will get some updates out about that today. But be sure you join us on Friday, and we'll talk to Representative Sherry Connolly live. So anything else, Michael?
That's it.
All right. Then we'll see y'all on Friday. Have a great day. Have a great time until Friday.